Welcome to the Fantasy Source Fastball Podcast. My name is David Arnott, sitting next to Bill Bender. How you been doing, Bill?
I'm doing well. I guess like the rest of the world, I'm eagerly awaiting the debut of Steven Strasburg.
Oh, yes, it's set for June 8th. He's going to be pitching against the Pittsburgh Pirates, which is a pretty ideal opponent for a guy who's just made his Major League debut, wouldn't you say?
I think so, and I think the Nationals did that on purpose. Give him a 2-start week next week, which we were just talking about out in the office. That's going to have owners buzzing right off the go, and they gave him a couple cupcake opponents in the Pirates and Indians, and I'm proud to say my wife was able to get us tickets for that Indians game. So if I walk in the stadium and all my body aches are healed, then we'll know why.
As a Giants fan, I will say that I was looking forward to that happening when Buster Posey got called up. Hasn't happened yet, but one can always hope. As you may or may not have been able to tell from our opening banter, as it were, we're talking about prospects right now. As you can tell, Bill seems pretty high on Strasburg. Would you say that's a fair characterization?
I think so. I know every owner out there is really excited about him, and if you look what he's done in AAA, it's hard to ignore. I mean, 3-1, 127 ERA, 33 Ks in 28.1 innings, and as I like to say, it doesn't matter what level you're pitching at. When somebody's doing that, it's going to pop at you. I don't know how good he'll be, and they're going to limit his innings, probably pitch less than 100 innings, but I still think he'll be a fantasy factor when he's in the game.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, he's ceased to become a pitching prospect. He's a major league caliber pitcher. I mean, just about anybody will, any analyst, any scout will tell you that same thing right there, and some will even say that he was a major league caliber pitcher in college last year. At worst, I can't imagine he'll be a bottom-tier fantasy pitcher. I mean, I have to think that he's going to be somewhere around the lines of an average fantasy pitcher at worst.
Absolutely, and I think the thing that owners have to be cautious with is if he isn't great off the go, look at David Price this year. That's a guy that I kind of look at with Strasburg. Price was a little shaky last year, had some control problems, but he was able to come back in year two, use that experience, and look at him. He's among the league leaders in ERA, strikeouts, and a part of one of the best rotations in baseball.
Well, we also mentioned another highly touted rookie just a few moments ago, Buster Posey. The guy is absolutely raking in his first few games for the Giants. There's still some question, especially given what Brian Sabian, the Giants general manager, said about how they're going to use Posey. There's still some question over how much he's actually going to play. But as someone who qualifies at catcher in a lot of leagues, how do you see his usefulness playing out in the next few weeks and then or throughout the rest of the season?
I think he's putting owners in an incredible dilemma because if you've got an average to below average catcher already starting and you've brought in Posey, you see the upside. You saw the 2-3 hit games right off the go, and the fact that he plays in first base makes him that much more attractive. And I picked him up in a league, and now I'm wrestling with an everyday decision with him and Yadier Molina. So I see where owners are coming from. And with that, I think Posey is a guy, just let him play off the bench for a little bit, let him settle in. He's going to have ups and downs as a rookie, and just go from there.
I'd be worried about him if for only because, and this may be a little bit irrational, but the last catcher who was supposedly an all-world prospect to come up was Matt Wieters, and he has something like an 84 OPS plus this year, something like that, which as a catcher, okay, whatever, but it's nowhere near the kind of superstar type numbers that we expected of him coming out of first college and then just roaring through the minors.
Yeah, and the other thing is he plays with the Giants, a team that struggles on offense to begin with and plays in a tough, pitcher's park. So with Posey, I think you have to temper your expectations. But the fact he can play first base for you too, given that dual eligibility, he's a nice player to have on the bench. And like I said, if he hits and continues to play well, good for you.
There's another guy in the National League West, another young guy who's been doing exceptionally well, a pitcher for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, I don't know how to pronounce his name exactly. I probably should have looked this up earlier. Is it John Eli or John Ely?
I think it's John Eli.
John Eli.
That's what we're going with.
Why don't you talk a little bit about him? I mean, I think he's had 3 straight games where he's given up 1 or 0 runs, something like that.
Absolutely. He's had 6 consecutive starts with 2 earned runs or less. Once Steven Strasburg gets called up, people are going to forget about John Eli, who's a rookie, who's been solid, and he's been doing just a great job for that team and been an underrated fantasy contributor. One stat that jumps out with him is he has 37 strikeouts against just 8 walks, and he's pitching. He hasn't got any run support in the last 2 starts, and he's still pitched through that. I like his toughness. I like the fact that his ERA and FIP aren't that different, and I think with his 2-0, 169 ERA at home, I think he's a pitcher that owners can latch on to.
Now, obviously, if you've got really bad pitchers at the back end of your rotation or your staff, as it were, you don't want you would recommend going and getting this guy. What if you have a guy who's okay, but not in any way thoroughly and not in any way inspiring? For instance, one of my teams, I've got Johnny Cueto as a guy who's he gets some strikeouts, but his ERA is somewhere around 4.3. He plays in Great American Ballpark, which isn't exactly a pitcher's park. Should I be considering dropping Cueto if I see Eli out there?
I think now it's getting real close to the time when you're going to sell high on Johnny Cueto, and that's a good example because you look at his second half stats, you look at what he does in July. I believe he has a 5.35 ERA after the break. So with Cueto, I think that's a guy you want to sell high on, but I still wouldn't cut him at this point given what he gives you with the strikeouts and the wins, and that'd be a tough decision for me, but I think I'd hold on to Johnny Cueto. But with other average high ERA pitchers, I wouldn't hesitate to get rid of them because I think John Eli deserves to be on most, if not all, fantasy rosters right now.
All right, so now there's segueing from prospects to other guys that we've been getting a lot of questions about in our emails and just in seeing message board posts across the internet. A guy who I think is in many baseball fans' minds having a bit of a resurgence this year is Scott Rowland. He's been coming out and just hit like gangbusters for a while there in Cincinnati. Why don't you talk about him?
I think Scott Rowland's been one of the biggest pleasant surprises in the whole season. If you look at the fact that he has 13 homers this year, he only had 11 all last season. I had a feeling that Great American Ballpark and him were going to get along, and it absolutely has, but he's hitting even better on the road. I mean, last night we saw him hit 2 home runs against the Cardinals, which you had to see coming given his history with Tony La Russa. You know he was going to play there. But the key with him is the same as it's always been. He just has to stay healthy. If Scott Rowland stays healthy, he's going to be a year-long contributor and maybe in that corner infield and a starting third baseman, in mixed leagues.
It is kind of weird that Rowland and Troy Gloss, are kind of having this simultaneous resurgence after that very weird trade where they ended up getting exchanged for each other, too.
Absolutely, and Troy Gloss, I'm up against him in a head-to-head league this week, and I'm actually scared when he's at bat. So that tells you right there that I think he's having a good season, too.
Now, there's another third baseman, this one in the American League, that I drafted in the Sporting News Experts League thinking that I'd get some good power numbers out of him, but I've been extremely surprised with his batting average, and that's Adrian Beltre.
I remember you making that pick and thinking, that's a good pick, and where you got him in the draft in those middle to late rounds. And look what he's doing. I mean, 342 average, 6 homers, 37 RBIs, and he's been consistent at home and on the road, and that's been the key for him. And again, much like Rowland and Glaus, he's got to just stay healthy. In that lineup, he's going to produce. And I think I said this early in the season, the fact that he's going to play for a contender this year and not be stuck out there in Seattle or, some of those bad Dodgers teams he was on, I think that's going to keep his bat going. So I think you've got tremendous value there, and long-term, he's going to have success.
All right, this has been the Fantasy Source Fastball Podcast. I'm David Arnott. Bill Bender, thanks for joining us. Let's do this again sometime.
Absolutely. It would be great.